this requirements elicitation project that we worked on for the past 3 weeks. In this presentation, we will be covering the requirements workshop, the card sort, and the apprenticeship elicitation techniques.
All right, so one of the first techniques that we did was the requirements workshop. Basically, very simply stated, this requirements workshop is a time for the sponsor and the stakeholders to meet together in order to develop requirements for a project, or in our case, a time for us to sit down with Jordan Hamblin and develop requirements for the activity app. This is one of the first elicitation techniques to make sure that everyone is on the same page so that the process of designing the application can go smoother. A couple things I have on the slide: develop/discover requirements for the project. Basically, like, this is the main purpose of the requirements workshop, is to make a list of the requirements that will be used for the project. It's kind of some benefits is it increases communication. Requirement workshops help to increase the communication between those developing the app and sponsor for those, or those that are like funding the application, just to make sure that everybody's like on the same page. Typically, these requirements workshops are held at the beginning of the creative process. Both of these, this one and the last one, kind of go together. Typically, the requirements workshop would be held at the beginning of the creative process, but can be performed multiple times throughout the design process. And then, so we have some kind of features that we came up with from this requirements workshop that Tori will talk about next. So.
Yep. So if we'll go to the next slide. When we talked to our sponsor, Jordan Hamblin, we learned a lot about what kind of his vision for the app was, some of those basic beginning requirements. And so some of those are just what are listed here, that the app initially will just be offered through iOS to start out with, that there would be 2 main classes of users, the business accounts and then just personal user accounts. Businesses will be able to create activities and bid for a spot higher on the list that other users will see. And then users will sign up with their name and other basic info, and then they can log in either through like a social media like Google or Facebook, or just with their own name and email. And then users will be able to find events that they're interested in and then create some and join them to meet new people. They can also use the events in order to plan dates. They can interact with people that they've attended events with before, and they can also manage the events that they've created, like to deny requests to join it and other things. And then they can also, he also listed some things that would be more in the future of the app, such as using GPS to show events happening nearby or other similar things farther out. And so from this, we got a pretty good general overview of what our sponsor was kind of looking for in the app as a whole, what his initial ideas were.
All right, so the apprenticing technique was the second technique that we studied, that we work with this semester. So it basically involves learning and performing tasks with the supervision of an experienced user. So basically this technique allows us to analyze and to get closer to the user and to get more specific and accurate information. And some of the benefits of this technique is that the user can learn through observation, face-to-face interactions, like when the user can make questions and discuss anything that is not clear. And also this technique provides like physical interaction where the analyst can even simulate the user's actions. The apprenticing technique is very useful when the analysts do not have experience with the domain or the user have difficulty explaining the procedures. So this technique is very useful to make information and data more clear, especially for the analyst. So while we applying this technique, we have to make some adaptations due to COVID-19, as we were not able to go around and meet people and get together. So what we did, we make some remotely approach where we use some questions to send to the user, and we use those questions to interact with them remotely. So, and now Ivy will talk more about the requirements.
So next slide. So what we did was we asked about 14 users 10 questions. And these questions, they were along the lines of how do you find out about events with your friends and family? And how do you find out about local events? And how do you plan events? And so the requirements that we are on the right side, what we got was that users generally communicated through a messaging system. That was the main way that they found out about events with friends or family. And how they would plan events with friends or family, it was usually groups within messaging or making calls. And also, friends would also invite friends through inviting or sharing events with people. And another way that people would find out about events was just browsing through events. And so those are some of the features that we found that would be good to add to this app. So next slide.
So car sorting is the third technique we use, in this project, and this technique help us to evaluate, as a programmer and developer. It help us to design or evaluate information architect of the site we're going to build. So this thing allows us to create categories and pages within the application, so that we can have the user better navigate it. There were two options offered. One was a closed car sort, and the other one was an open car sort. The reason why we chose to implement the closed car sort was because that works better with predefined categories, and that's what we're doing. This technique will help us to learn how users sort content items into each categories, so that we better know what are the users' preferences. We know what exactly the user wants, because when we're building an app, that's a main goal we're trying to pursue, is to satisfy the users. So and here we use a website called usabilitytest.com to create categories and features for the application. This website also helps us to collect and store data for our car sort. So once we have all the data managed and collected, we'll be analyzing data and find out which one's the best option, which ones are the best option for our customers and users. Right, you up.
So that brings us to our technique. So the technique that we used for the card sorting, as Feng, you mentioned before, was we used the usability test to document the user's different preferences for features into categories. We then compared those features, and we found out which categories contained which features and which were most common. The most important things that this revealed is that certain features fit into certain categories for the user. This will allow the users to navigate the application quickly and efficiently in the future when we do develop this app. And from this card sort, features can be easily grouped together into common pages and into common menu items. That's kind of the basis of what we found out from the card sorting. The card sorting was meant to enable us to create a more user-friendly web page, essentially. And here are our sources. So in conclusion, our elicitation techniques revealed multiple very important features about the functionality and the usability of this application that we are developing. Everything that we have discovered is meant to help this application and to further build the application now in the SRS document. And that is all.